Good morning and welcome to H3 TV, where we gather every Wednesday to spread hope, health, and happiness. We know that we're all walking through stories, and when COVID hit, I thought, what can I do? What can be my part? And I've always dreamed of having a talk show. I much prefer video over podcast. And so I thought, why don't I start my own H3 TV, where we gather with a different guest every week to talk about how do they stay hopeful, healthy, and happy. It's a topic I speak on. It's a conversation I love to have. And it's definitely an encouragement that I love to bring to the world that we can be hopeful, healthy, and happy even when we're walking through a storm. Today, I have my friend and guest, Kate, with me. Please help me welcome Kate to the stage. Hey, Kate, thanks for being here.
Hey, I'm so excited. We've met so many times before, but never had a chance to sort of one-on-one. So this is a really lucky opportunity for me, especially in the speaking world. You are someone that I really look up to. So I'm really, really happy to have some time with you today. And
Well,
with all of you.
with all of you, yes. And we can ask questions or comments anytime throughout this, but we appreciate you being here. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? What's your story?
So I'm Kate Donovan. I'm the host of Fried, the Burnout podcast. I work with organizations to reduce burnout so they can keep top talent. And I work with individuals one on one to reduce burnout so they can enjoy their lives again.
Mm.
Basically, I'm reducing burnout all along. A lot of people talk about preventing burnout. I don't do a lot of burnout prevention. I'm the person to come to when you are already burnt out or when there's already an issue of burnout. We call this inflammation in companies because I was a healthcare practitioner for a long time. So if your company is inflamed with burnout, I'm the person you want to come talk to put out the fires. If your life is inflamed with burnout, I'm here to put out your fires. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm also an author, the bounce back ability factor. And my career started with 15 years in acupuncture, which is usually interesting to people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love your fiery red glasses that you're wearing today, and the frying pan is so awesome. We need visuals. I mean, I think that's why I came up with the pineapples. Like, we need the visual. Like, people can remember visual. And I like that you say you don't say, "Hey, I'm going to help you prevent it." You come in because the reality is, so many of us are dealing with burnout. We're dealing with stress. I always say, I can't take away your stress, but if we can acknowledge it, I can show you ways to release it. And my
Exactly.
background being a gym owner, I think that helps us recognize it all comes down to, I think you were in acupuncture, comes
Yeah.
down to what is going on in our mind and in our body that's
Yeah.
causing the problems that we need acupuncture and whatever, why are we fried? So excellent. All right. So what I'd like to know from you, where we're going to start, is what are your tips? So we know we have listeners that are like, hey, I don't know where to even start, Kate. Like, give me, what are your 3 to 5 things you do every day to stay hopeful, healthy, or happy? What's your rituals? What's your routines? What do you do to avoid burnout or to deal with your burnout?
This is going to sound massively counterintuitive
Yeah,
and a little bit out of place on the Hope, Health, and Happiness TV
that's
channel. A little
okay.
bit out of place, but I'm gonna flip it around.
I want your truth. So,
I honestly and truly, very deeply believe that resentment is a superpower
mm,
that is highly underutilized because we are attempting to cover everything in a gloss of gratitude, even when we don't feel it.
mm,
When you are burnt out, when you have that a moment of awe, to me, awe and gratitude is a similar physical feeling
yeah,
in my body. When you have a feeling of true awe, like you notice a beautiful sunrise or sunset and your whole body is just like filled with it. When you experience that, it's scientifically shown to be useful. So I'm not saying that I hate gratitude, but what I am saying is when you are burnt out, the way that your brain is communicating with itself doesn't allow for that type of physical experience of gratitude. So if somebody tells you to gratitude journal when you're burnt out, it's likely going to simply cause you to feel more guilty,
mm,
not gracious. You're going to judge yourself for having so much and feeling so little. So it doesn't work in that circumstance. But what does work is taking inventory of the anger emotions, resentment, irritation, frustration, annoyance, and anger itself. When we pay attention to especially resentment, what we find is here is where all of my boundaries are being crossed. Now, before we get into other people are jerk mode, which I think a lot of boundary speak goes into other people are jerk mode, and I don't think that that's true. I don't believe that people are out there trying to get us all the time. Most of the boundaries that you'll need to set are internal. Most of the boundaries you need to set when you're looking really truly at your resentment are things where you have to remove yourself from being the savior, the martyr, the helper, the good person. You don't have to talk to anybody. There's no boundary to be stated out loud. There is an internal agreement for you to work with more integrity with yourself, to meet your own needs so that you can help when it is requested, when someone has something for you, when you need to show up for something because it's been asked.
Yeah.
If we know where the boundaries are breaking down, we can start to implement better practices around them. The story that I like to tell about this is I was on a tram in Prague every day for 6 years. I lived in Prague. My acupuncture office was in Prague. I'd get on the tram in the morning. I'd head to work. While I was getting on the tram, it was busy in the morning, right? Everybody's going to work. Everybody uses the public transport because it's cheap, it's available, it's fast, it works. There's no need not to. And there's nowhere to park. So you might as well get on the tram. That means it's busy. I see someone sitting in the seat that's reserved for the differently abled, the elderly, the pregnant, etc. I don't know if this person is healthy or not, but they look healthy. And I see a little old woman waiting on the sidewalk, getting ready to get on at the next stop. Now I can no longer pay attention to myself. I have completely left my body. I have abandoned myself wholly because I need to know if this person is going to get up and get out of that seat when little old lady gets on the tram. Because if they don't, I'm going to be the one to tell them because I'm going to save the day. I know I'm talking fast, but I'm doing it on purpose, right? I'm going to save the day and I'm going to get this little old lady a seat and she's going to be grateful and I'm going to be a good person. Wow, every day, back and forth from work for 6 years, I spent entire tram rides in stress because I was wondering where people were going to sit. This means I'm taking agency and autonomy away from that old woman, right? She has a voice. She's been riding this tram by herself since she was 8, probably. And I'm judging the person that's sitting there unnecessarily. So I'm not being nice at all. So I needed to pull myself out of, okay, I'm feeling resentful toward that person. What's really going on here? I had to practice being on a tram and staying in my body and saying, are you hungry? Do you need to pee? Are you thirsty? Like, what are your basic foundational needs? Are they being met?
Right. What are you missing?
Yeah.
What are you missing? And we do sit, I always think that when we sit in that judgment seat of another and we're assessing them and we're evaluating and we're judging them without knowledge, without their story, without curiosity and wonder that I love to teach about, we leave people stuck. And so
Yeah.
what I'm really wondering about, Kat, is what are you doing today and I believe in gratitude and I practice gratitude, but I'm always like, gratitude leaves you really stuck. It leaves you stuck in, I'm not grateful enough. I loved how you said, I have so much, but I'm so unappreciative. And people don't always understand that when you're struggling with something. But I also think gratitude is so self-absorbed. It's so focused on me. And so I'm always like, generosity. What did you give away? What did you do for another? Because nothing brings me more joy than to give, than to serve, than to make someone else smile. Like I literally get up in the morning and be like, how many people can I make smile today? Just by a kind word. And like, it's a game in my head, but I think that generous. And instead of judging others, which is our nature, we're like, oh, I wonder what that person's story is. Oh, maybe they really needed to sit down. We don't know if they have an injury. We don't know if they have heart disease.
Exactly.
And a lot of people with handicap stickers don't look how we assume a handicapped person should look.
Exactly.
So do you have practices to keep yourself in your body every day, to keep yourself from, because you're right, resentment comes from that judgment piece, right? Like, oh, well, you're this and I don't like you because you think you're better. Well, who said that? Who said that?
Stories. A lot of it is stories that you're making up.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And the story for me was, I'm not useful or valuable unless I'm helping people all the time. So even that space of being generous, I find to be also tricky.
Okay. Because you're saying, can't I just be valuable for who I am and stop worrying about everyone else? Just like, I like myself, I value myself, and I don't need to be. Also, it's a control piece, right? Like, I got to be the king of everything and queen of everything. And you shouldn't sit there and you should do this. And it's a lot of shoulds, which is, I always say, shame comes from saving or shaming or shame.
Mm,
We can either shame people or save people, and neither one of them really leave us empowered or them. But if
right.
we invite people and just support them, then it's not about saving or shaming, right? It's about
You nailed
support
it.
on the journey.
You
So
nailed it. So you
yeah,
can the question is, can you be generous in a way that is not saving or shaming?
yeah,
If you can hold that space, yay.
yeah,
And to hold that space, I think that you need this. This is something that I keep in front of me all the time. Reciprocity, a lot of people believe is supposed to be one person to one person. I did you this favor, now you do me this favor. I don't believe that. I think reciprocity is more of a conversation between us and the universe, us and God, us and
yeah,
the energy that surrounds us. Whatever you call it. It doesn't matter
mhm,
to me what you call it. Reciprocity is I give what I can from a space of fulfillment
yeah,
and I get what I need with acceptance and joy.
yeah. For sure.
This is something that I know that I hope you don't mind, and you can tell me to bugger off. But I know this was hard for you in the beginning after Ian hit. You were saying it's really hard for me to receive.
Yeah,
And I was sitting there and I was thinking, this is it, right? You have this woman who is spreading so much joy to so many people all the time. We should be able to receive with joy as much as we give with joy.
yeah,
You deserve it as much as everybody else, and everyone was so happy to be there for you, especially the National Speakers Association community I know showed up big time, and we wanted to. We're
yeah.
happy to. This is our joy is giving to you in that moment. So I think that this shift in mindset around reciprocity is something that I practice every day. When I give something out, I remind myself this is coming back, maybe not in this same form.
Yes. And that it's not one I mean, people will say karma or I love the
Yeah.
word reciprocity, and I always think that, like, when people are like, "Well, what if," especially early on in my career, people are like, "What if you give too much away and then it doesn't come back to you?" And I'm like, "I never think about that. I never
No.
worry about that. I just give because it brings me joy, and it does always come back." I mean, the beautiful thing, and thank you, Kate, for being one of many that in NSA and Cigar Peg, in my community, my social media, people reached out. I mean, I have cards all over my living room. I have, and it is still super humbling to receive. And yet
Yeah.
I'm really trying. I'm writing some thank you cards this morning. And I was like, I have spent my whole life from the time I could, with my door open and food on
Yeah.
the counter and
Yeah.
a loving word and a place to
Exactly.
sleep and food for anyone that I could, because it does, like somebody said once, in my mastermind that I ran for 7.5 years. Why do you always give, Annie? Like, why are you always so generous? Is it because, and these three men were like, oh, is it because of all the people that have given to you? And a woman in there who used to be a therapist and is a coach and a speaker said, oh, no, that's not why Annie gives. It's for all the times nobody did give to her. And she
Right.
never wants anyone to feel like that. And I think in the beginning, it was for sure that, because I don't want people to feel unseen and undervalued and unloved.
Yeah.
But it came to like, oh my gosh, it's so joyful for me to give. And I never worry about will it get returned. And it has been returned a million times over, to be honest with you. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like every day someone is checking on me still. And
Yeah.
there's times that I'm still super teary or,
Of course.
I was talking to Sharon the other day and I was like, I'm still having terrible nightmares, but
Yeah.
anyway, I feel like we're all over the place, but it is reciprocity and it is karma. And it is I feel like I am blessed to be a blessing, and
Yeah.
those blessings just keep unfolding. And sometimes they're going outward and sometimes they're coming in, but there's no tally. It's just
Right.
reciprocity.
There's
Is
no
love.
tally. Exactly. And I think this is the thing that matters. And if you find yourself tallying, when I find myself tallying, I know that a boundary is being crossed. That's when I start feeling resentful. When I
Mm,
start tallying. And if I'm tallying, that means that I feel like in whatever situation, I've already given enough.
yeah.
I've given enough to this, and I need to leave space for whoever and whatever is involved to grow without my input.
Yeah.
And sometimes that generosity that I would be offering in places where I'm feeling resentful is not actually helpful because I'm overdoing it and not allowing someone space to really evolve because
Yeah.
I'm fixing something for them,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Yeah.
like that. I like being the fixer.
Yeah, of course, because that gives you power to be a save. I mean, that's what I tell people. They'll be like, I don't shame people when they ask me to be their accountability partner. I said, you usually have one of two roles and sometimes both. If you're not shaming, then you're saving.
Mhm.
And then that gives you power. Oh, I helped Kate do this. And so she
Mhm.
really, no, not about me and my ego. And that's a
Right.
big, huge, powerful thing about, I think, becoming a successful speaker is when you realize, when you are fully free, which I really feel like this 97% of the time, not always, but 90, when I realize I don't really care if you like me and I
Yeah.
don't really care if I say it perfectly. What I care about is that the audience receives something, that I
Yeah.
show up with my best to give my best. Some will love me, some won't like me. It doesn't matter, that I am there for their sake, not for my sake, not
Exactly.
to get the standing ovation, to help them, inspire them to be different in their life, to think differently, to change their stories, to rewrite the stories
Yes.
that don't serve them, and to
Yes.
support them on their journey, but not to shame or to save, because I'm not a
Exactly.
savior. I am
No.
Annie
I'm not
Meehan.
anymore.
Yeah. Okay. You're free.
I'm not anymore, but I did hold that role for a very long time, and it led me to burnout.
Mm,
It
there
burnt
you
me
go.
out because I could only save people if I neglected myself.
Right? Yes. But when you go, wait a minute, I can take care of me first, and I don't have to feel guilty if I remember somebody saying to me, "Do you ever say no to volunteering?" And it was definitely a season of my life, and I think it's real common with mothers, not all moms, but some moms. You're on 42 committees. You're on the church committee, the sports committee, the school committee, the neighborhood committee, the you're hosting. I mean, we literally hosted thousands and thousands of people in our home. My daughter just said recently, I don't think anybody ever hosted as many. We had at one point 300 teenagers in our kid. There was a trauma at the high school, and a neighbor called and said, "What's going on over there?" And I was like, "We have a safe home." I mean, there was kids
Yeah.
laying on our kitchen floor. We hosted dinner, but at the neglect sometimes of yourself, right? And then
Yeah.
you go, enough. So when we moved to the beach, Greg and I kind of agreed we were not going to drive anywhere. We're just going
Yeah.
to ride bikes and walk, because we had been running and spinning. And it
For
is
such
that
a long
boundary
time.
piece, right? Like
Yeah.
first. And different seasons don't allow for that.
Yeah,
So I
different
had
seasons of
questions
life.
for you, but you've
Yeah,
got so
let's
many
do.
good
I know
stories. I don't
we
know
have
if we're even
a
going to
lot of
go.
fun things to talk about.
Yeah. um, so, because I was kind of thinking about, I kind of wanted to know. So, one of them is being in check with. That's what I want to know a little bit about. Kate, is your self care, your own routine to know, because life does happen, as we talked
Yeah.
about before we jumped on this show. There is always something, and sometimes something huge. So,
Yeah.
how do you protect yourself from falling back into a savior, or self neglect,
Yeah.
or whatever it is?
So the first stage for me is always making sure I'm paying attention to resentment and being honest about it. It's not something that a lot of us want to admit or be honest about. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is physical movement.
Yes.
We when it's during the season, I live in New Jersey, so this is from March to November.
Okay.
My husband and I row on a river 3 times a
Mm.
week from 6 to 7:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Right, but we are out there and it's not always, like, we don't sometimes we're sweating a lot if we're doing, like, faster pieces, but sometimes we're just chilling for 10K, and we're just going, we have our meditative rhythm, we don't talk to one another, we just go. Sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's hiking, sometimes it's walking, but physical movement is absolutely key. The next step for me is yoga nidra, which is basically a guided body scan meditation
Okay.
where I listen to somebody's voice who tells me, relax your jaw, relax your forehead, relax your shoulders, release your knees, really, just let it all go. Because to me, the thing that sets me off the most is when my nervous system is on high alert. I have ADHD. I have a boatload of trauma in my past, and I get very hyper vigilant and very anxious. So for me, getting back into my physical body while it's in a calm state
Mhm.
is what allows me to stay centered and allows me then step 4 is take care of the basics. I know as someone who burnt out that when I'm getting into a more stressed out mode, one of the first things to go is full length showers. All of a sudden, I'm like, pits and bits. Done. Get out of here. Right? Because I can't and that's an indication to me that I am neglecting myself. I'm not even taking the amount of time that I need to properly wash myself.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to write 3 more emails before I go to the bathroom, even though I already have to pee. Like, these seem people always laugh at these, and I say them on purpose to sort of jolt people, but at the same time,
Oh, 100%.
they're so real. If I am thirsty, I get up and get water. like mind-blowing shift. But for me, it was a mind-blowing shift. So when I take the time to do a body scan meditation during the day, it's much easier for me to be in tune with what my physical body needs to feel safe and centered, and then I can meet those needs.
I like that. Kat, or Kate, one thing I'd ask you is if you're willing, if you have to a link to the body scan. If you would share that once this is posted, you can share it
Yeah,
in here as well if you'd like. But I would
yeah.
love for you to write a little bit about it and share it on Facebook and LinkedIn for those of us. And I think something you hit on that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and it can be as basic as drinking water and peeing, is that many people are not in touch with our bodies. We're moving
Oh,
so
yeah.
fast. We're doing so many things. We don't take time to shut down, to slow down, to
Right.
have silence. And I remember when I was pregnant with my daughter, Megan, that I was like, oh my gosh, my body's so loud. Like, get rice right now, which weird things, and peas. And
Yeah.
I was and the doctor said, well, your body's always loud. It's just that most people are louder than their body, so they don't
Mm.
listen. But if you slow down, exactly what you're saying, and listen, it will tell you, hey, I need rest. Hey, I need some water. The basic stuff that we take for granted.
Basics.
And they say, especially as people struggle with depression, taking a full shower and not just sitting in a bath. Baths can be nice and relaxing, but a shower renews you, right? Taking time for quiet and good nutrition and all of that. So that's so important. Thanks for sharing that. Do you think that health has happened in your life by choice, by chance, or based on circumstances? How have
Health
you
health
gotten
has
health?
been absolutely intentional and by choice in my life.
Okay. And it sounds like
Absolutely.
an everyday by choice. I always think
Every day.
movement is medicine. I have
Yes.
to move my body, not because I always want to, but I
Yeah.
have to, right?
100%. To me, it's an absolute choice, and most of this I learned. Chinese medicine in the States is a master's degree, so I have a 4-year master's program that I went through to be qualified to practice acupuncture, and the amount of things that I learned in there about intentionally choosing your emotions, your space, your environment, everything from how my desk is set up and what colors are in my office, to what I'm wearing every day, to how I'm feeding myself, to all of these things are very, very intentional.
Absolutely. And they have to be. I mean, I think sometimes people just take for granted. I was thinking the other day, like I just didn't grow up in a traditional home or nurturing home. And I was telling my daughter, I'm like, those things, because she's really good about her routine, her morning routine, her evening routine. We've always been movement is medicine, owning the gyms. But I didn't grow up seeing any sort of structure or balance. So good morning, Bill. So Bill saying good morning to us.
Morning,
Um,
Bill.
and so um it was something I had to intentionally be like, okay,
Yeah.
am I worth taking care of in the morning and evening? What does that look like? And what would make me start my day my best and end my day my best? And I still feel like it's a practice. I'm still learning. What is
Yeah.
the best food? What feels good? I'm going to
Well,
this
it
retreat.
changes with time, right?
Yes.
It changes with
100%
age, it
always.
changes with time, it changes with what you need, like, you go through something major that you just went through, and you might be buying chopped onions for a while instead of chopping them yourself because you can't be bothered. You might
Exactly.
you might buy a couple months worth of paper plates because the thought of having dishes to do throws you over the edge, like, sometimes the self-care is pulling back from doing things right.
100 or doing things the way you were used to. I don't wanna say right
Yeah.
or wrong because
Yes,
no
yeah.
shame,
Okay.
but totally. I mean, we didn't really cook. I think I've
Exactly.
cooked, like, maybe 8 meals, maybe 10 since the hurricane, which been over 2 months. We were just like, "Let's eat frozen. Let's just eat a
Yeah.
sandwich. Let's just" like, little things have become big things to me, and
Right.
I've always been a sensitive person. I used to apologize for it, and I'm like, "Nope, that's part of who I am. I'm very tender-hearted and sensitive," um but I allowing myself to like, so what? So you didn't do everything you used to do, but it doesn't matter. Just do your best and keep doing that.
Exactly.
So when doubt does slip into your life and starts to steal your joyful, balanced self, what what is the first thing you do to get yourself back? And I love that you have a really rigid, I want to use the word, maybe that's not the right word, a really disciplined routine with your husband, right?
Yeah.
So you have an accountability partner, he has you, and you get up early and you go do it. But
Yeah.
when life happens, because it does,
Yep.
what do you do to get back?
First thing, call friends.
Mm,
This is something I didn't allow myself to do for a long time
mm,
because I was the helper, not the helpee.
mm,
So I would be there when people called me, but I wouldn't call them.
Mm.
And my best friend in Poland, after knowing me for 6 or 7 years, said to me when we were at a spa, laying on the bed like in a movie, like not even looking at each other, just staring at the ceiling, like chatting about nothing. And she said, I don't really know you. And I
Mm.
went, you know everything about me. And she said, no, I know your stories. And I went, oof, oof. And
Yeah.
that was a big catalyst for me to start reaching out to people and saying, I need something right now. I need you. I need you. Can you support me? I need you. So that's number one. The second thing I do is reach for a book by Tosha Silver called Outrageous Openness. I'm putting the link in the LinkedIn.
Awesome.
It's she likes to talk about living according to like alongside the divine. And she said, you can call it God, you can call it the universe. She doesn't care what you call it. But to remember that there is an energetic support for you somewhere out there,
Yeah.
that you're not alone really ever, even when you feel that way. And to remember to look for things that let you know that you are on a good path, and to release, this idea of aparigraha in Hindu, in the Hindu world, this idea of non-grasping onto the outcomes that you assume should be there, right? This idea where you can sort of put in what you think you're going to put in and accept whatever the outcome is.
Yeah.
So I open her book. It's a book of short stories. So I open to a random page, I read one short story, and then I close it and go away.
Yeah. But you have a strategy. I mean, the
Yes.
big thing for me when I always think about people that I meet is like, what is your strategy? And you
Yeah.
need your strategy before the crisis happens, before the
Mhm.
storm hits. You
Mhm.
need some strategies. And I love that you reach out to friends right away. I think I always encourage people when you ask for help, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And it also gives that other person permission to ask you for help. Though I do think there's a lot of people in the world that one is more the helper and one is more the help.
Yeah.
But really, you're doing a disservice. So I love that your friend challenged you in a way, because I've met a lot of women along the way, and I'm an open book. So I'm always going to tell you, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this, and oh my gosh, I'm excited about this. Oh my gosh, I'm stressed about this. I'm kind of an open book. But I've had friends along the way that have said, hey, or I've said, hey, you don't really share much. Well, I'm fine, I'm good. But
Mhm.
that's not authentic. And it's very hard to feel close to people that always tell you they're okay and always tell you they're good. And yet you can't force other people to speak. But at times those other people might feel like, well, you talked more than me. And I'm always like, man, I want to know your stories. I'm always asking because I genuinely want to know. And it's hard to feel close to people that don't open up and share. It's
Yeah.
hard to feel close to people that are addicts. I mean, all of those things are barriers to and beautiful relationships. And I,
Yes.
I think relationships can be very challenging with friends in the sense that some will not share they always want to appear that they have it together. And whether they see you as weak by being open or not, they just can't allow themselves to be.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that your friend said that. And what a gift
What
that
a
she
gift.
said that, rather than saying, you don't tell me I'm done with you. She said, I don't really know you. And it gave you moment. And one of my really good friends, we've talked over the years about, do people have self-reflection? We're really good at reflecting on everyone else's life and what people are doing right and wrong. I mean, we can tell you, but do we take a moment to go, where am I? Where am I strong and where am I weak? And what do
Yeah.
I need to work on to be a better friend, to be a better communicator, to be a better professional speaker, writer, whatever your podcaster,
Yeah.
H3 TV. And I think that's why I always am open to questions and challenges, because it helps grow me. Like, what am I not seeing? We all have blind spots. We all have pieces that, like, oh, I didn't realize I came across like that, or that's not what my intention was. And
Yeah.
what a gift it's been this last 2 months to have people reflect back to me that they do see me as loving and joyful. Because I never know. You never know, really, right? Like, you just keep doing your thing. So anyway, all right. Another question I wanted to ask you about is, when I own gyms, when people say, are you healthy? Usually the first thought that pops in people's mind is physical. And for many people, physical means what's the number on the scale. But for me, I was like, that is not really what health is about. Health is about a bunch of things. So I have 7 categories. So I'm going to list them. Then I want you to tell me, what do you really care about? Good morning. So is it physical health? Is it emotional? Is it mental? Is it financial? Is it relational? Is it career? Is it spiritual health? When you yourself, what are you working on? And then second, what do you love to serve your clients when you are supporting them? What do you like to work on yourself and for them?
So Chinese medicine doesn't separate those things.
Okay.
So I have 20 years of looking at those things as one solid whole. There's a popular life coaching exercise. I wonder if I have a sheet around because we just did it recently. Oh yeah, I do. Called the Wheel of Life, right? I didn't make this up. This is in every life coaching
Yes,
thing
I'm
that's ever
very
been
familiar.
done, right?
Yes.
So this is how wonky my wheel is this week. Like, right. So, and these are all basically all the categories that you just mentioned. And
Yes.
so to me, I don't believe in if my physical health is not supported by financial stability and the ability to be creative and a healthy relationship, that's not health.
That's right.
And
Because
that
we're one
doesn't,
being, we're
it's,
one body, we're one being with all
yes.
those dimensions. Yes.
I also have a strong, I believe that one of my purposes on earth is to keep myself at as high a vibration as possible so that when I enter a grocery store, a gas station mini mart, a Zoom call, that what I'm bringing here is a good ingredient for our shared emotional soup that we're all swimming in together all day, every day. Right.
Yes.
There's studies that show that you can measure the heart waves 8 to 10 feet outside of your body. That means that we are
Mhm.
literally touching each other, whether we're 6 feet apart for COVID or not. We are touching each other on an emotional level. So I don't believe that I can be healthy if I am not adding a good ingredient to our
Mm.
soup, to our, I call it the emotional soup. But I look at all of the aspects all the time.
Yeah.
But for me, for people, the thing that I work with most and like working with most is not any of those things in particular, but the relationship between the person and the thing that's going wrong.
Mm.
What's happening in this in between space that's setting this off?
Yeah.
And it's the same if we go on a company scale. So when I do speaker series within a company and then follow-up coaching we like to create burnout proof cultures around here. When we do that, it's what is the relationship between the culture and the people and the mission? What's happening in that little Venn circle in the middle there?
Yeah.
What's happening there? What's going wrong there? Because it's not typically one thing that's wrong. It's the interaction that's
Yes.
wrong. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. Well, and it's always like people are like, well, this is the problem. I always say that with marital relationships when people go, well, the problem is financial. The problem is communication. The problem is an affair. And I'm like, okay, let's slow down. A whole bunch of things happened over here before we got to
Mhm.
this. So
Mhm.
how do we get back to where
Mhm.
we were? And so,
Yes.
yeah. I was I wanted to tell you. So, geez, I hope I have the right date. I think January 11th is the right date. There's 6 of us women. There are some incredible women, and I'm super honored to be invited in with them. And it's like Soul Sister. We're going to put on this free event online, and it's called Soul Sisters. And the creator of it is just this amazing, amazing woman. And her whole theme is be love. And then each woman kind of is bringing their own piece, and they've invited me to be part of it. So we're going to do this full day, or not full day, evening. I think it's like 4 to 7. I don't know. Anyway, I'll let Innovation Women especially know about it, but it's so cool. And it's all about the vibration and the energy and the love that
Yeah.
we're putting out in the world and how it's returning and how do we stay clear. And really the reason this was created was all of us are in the corner of Southwest Florida. And
Mm.
when people talk about rebuilding Southwest Florida, yes, and it is so much more than rebuilding. It is a healing that is needed here. There is so much pain. There is so much sadness. So this woman is
Fear,
in, yeah,
trauma.
at all the layers of it. So
Yeah.
she invited 6 women from Florida
Oh,
to gather to offer love and healing and hope out into the world. And it's for anyone, but the focus was we got to bring some love and healing to Southwest. People are hurting and
mhm.
lost. And then when we're hurting and lost and we get resentful, we're lashing out and we're being
Exactly.
rude. Kate, I don't care what you think. Well, I'm going to cut you off. Well, I'm going to flip you off. And I'm like, oh my, like it's like layers of pain and hurt.
Yeah.
And One of the women completely lost her whole house, watched it float away. She's an amazing woman. Every
Oh
woman,
my
I
goodness.
only don't know one of them, but every woman that's going to be part of this, one of the women on it is the first woman that showed up when we made it to that home in Naples. And I was just muddy and shaking. And she was just brought in this beautiful energy of love and calm. So I think it's going to be a fantastic thing. And then we're going
Love
to
it.
offer, like each of us is going to take a Monday night, I think, or Wednesday night and teach a course. That's an option for people, but just showing up for this, I think you'd love it because it's
Yeah,
amazing women. And I'm a certified coach. A number of them are certified coaches, and they're all speakers and coaches. And so
I love it.
just a great group of
What a
cool.
wonderful gift for the
So
world
yeah,
at large.
right. And to just like
Mm.
exactly because we are connected, we need to give that love back everywhere. But Southwest Florida is just. We went to our
Hurting right
condo
now.
last night, and just it's still so. It's better. It's better. It's over 2 months out, but there's so much debris. There's so much darkness. There's just this heaviness
Yeah.
about it. Anyway, so many things we can talk about. So here's something, and you're talking about Eastern medicine, and one of
Mm.
my favorite massage therapists of all time. She's Eastern medicine, Western medicine, bring the best of both and balance it. But one thing that I've learned is there's a lot of you have to do this, you can't do that, you must do this. There's so much confusion around what is health. And maybe you've already demythed something by saying, you believe in the one, and I do too. We know we're one body with many, but is there a myth about health overall that you would love to tell people? Like, hey, you guys, when you're beating yourself up, it's not right or wrong. So whatever your story is, what's a myth?
Strict doesn't mean healthy.
Nice. Strict doesn't mean healthy. Simple, concise, and important. Strict does not mean healthy. I love that message. Great one. And then how about this? Can you tell us, Kate, a story of success, either your own personal success or success with an individual or with an organization that you've had? How did you help them? They were burnt out. They are burnt out. And how did you get them back to lowering that inflammation, as you say?
One of my favorite things is to run a course, which I did a lot this year. Could be a keynote, can be a workshop, but it is called Resentment is Your Superpower. And especially after the past couple of years with COVID and all of the extra things that people took on and all of the changing roles and the in-house, out-of-house teacher, not teacher, homeschooling, Zoom, all of it, people have a lot of leftover anger and resentment and frustration.
They do.
And we don't have a lot of space to actually work through that. So I led a group of women through a full resentment journal course, which typically is a DIY, like go do it yourself. But I led women through this whole course. I had people writing to me 3, 6, 9, and 12 months afterwards saying, I'd never admitted to this emotion before in my life.
Wow.
But I have a full structure that makes it safe to look at it and say, okay, like you said right in the very beginning, what are we going to do with this now? Right? What's the strategy here? I have the emotional information. I have decoded it into an issue. And now it's time for a solution. I have a whole decision tree that's written out that says, well, ask this question, yes or no, go here. The first question with doing a resentment journal is, does this thing that you're feeling resentful over even need to happen at all?
Mhm.
Does it need to happen at all? Like if you dropped it tomorrow, would anyone even notice?
Yeah.
And that question, I keep getting feedback that has given people more freedom and more energy back over time
Mm.
than almost anything else within companies, within individuals, because a lot of us are especially in companies, we build systems and we continue using them because they worked in the beginning, but we forget that as a company, we evolve. And some of those things are now just, you got to cut out the fat. Like this is just not necessary anymore. So this silly question, you have a resentment, you look at the situation, you're real mad. You say, does this even need to be done? What a freedom
Question.
fueling moment.
Yeah, for sure. I remember once I had a mastermind of professional speakers when I lived in Minnesota, and we met every single month. We never missed a month for 7.5 years, and I love that time together. But I remember once we were sitting around, we were talking about standing ovations, and some people were saying, "Oh, I get them," or "I don't get them," or whatever. And one of the guys said to me, "Annie, you get a standing ovation every time you speak." And I was like, "I do." I said, "I think I've only gotten 2 or 3. I don't really care about it." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "The best standing ovation, the best, Kate, is when a week, a month,
Mhm.
6 months, a year later, someone is writing to you
Mhm.
and telling you
Mhm.
how they implemented what you taught them, how you challenge their thinking. We're not just there to regurgitate and make you feel good about yourself. We're there to challenge your thinking to help you move forward. And so I think what a great gift. And I do. I mean, I secretly I give comment cards always and I say, these are for prizes, these are for comments. Then I tell some people I would say, oh, these are my love notes. I mean, I post them on the wall. I'm like, look at
Yeah.
people love me. So when I'm having that bad day, I remember, oh, what I said mattered. Oh,
Yeah.
I did help someone. Oh, I'm bringing value to the world, which matters to me. And so
Yeah.
wanted to say that to you first. Second of all, many people over the years have said you're really sensitive. You're kind of overly sensitive. You're so tenderhearted. I cry very easily. My heart hurts when I'm wounded, but my heart hurts even more when I watch other people be wounded. I
Mm.
love to be the savior, though I'm also training myself like it's not your job and you're not. But I get sad easily. But one thing,
Mhm.
my whole life, I've never really known how to get angry. I mean,
Mm.
literally my husband and I have been together 30 years. We just don't fight. We disagree sometimes or whatever. But even last night I said, I want to repaint our condo white with turquoise trim. Like that would be my beautiful. And he's like, oh, I'd never do that. And I'm like, I know you wouldn't. So we're not going to. And because I don't care enough to argue about it, but I love bright colors. Um, and for me, that's pretty tamed down anyway. White with aqua. I want all the walls to be aqua, but I was trying to calm them anyway. Um, I'm not good at anger and resentment. And partially, I think I'm afraid of it because of growing
Yes.
up in a violent home.
Yes.
But also, just like there's that messaging of you're bad if you resent,
Right.
and you're shifting that message. And I think it's really powerful and important for what you're saying. So I love that. And I know, Kate, people are going to want to stay connected with you. They're going to want to learn more about your work and about your habits and about how and where you're doing this work. So, what's the best way to get a hold of you or to connect with you?
The very best way, honestly, is to go to Fried the Burnout podcast and start picking through things that you might find interesting. From there, everything that you need to know about how to find me anywhere you need to find me is there. But Fried is the best place to sort of dip your toe in the water and see like, is this person for me?
Yeah.
Is this a good match? Do I like this vibe? So I always send people straight to the podcast first.
Awesome. And Kate, if you want, you can add that into the link on Facebook and LinkedIn just to make it sometimes easy, right?
Yeah,
Just to
sure.
find that. So that would be fabulous. I hope to be a guest on your podcast sometime. And, I'm trying to not be burnt out with so many things going on, but I'm super, this week has been I'm still not sleeping much and having nightmares and all those wonderful things that come with the trauma sometimes. But I have a whole bunch of things I'm looking forward to in 2023 and writing a new book about weathering the storms in our lives because we all have storms. And I'm doing a new keynote and a new website. And I'm just excited that I always feel like when I have something to look forward to, when I have projects, it really helps me heal. But thank you so much for being with us, for sharing part of your story. So great to get to know you and why you do your work and what all that you have transitioned. And just wish you the very best and great success as you continue to grow. So thank you to our
Thank
listeners for
you so
being
much.
here. We will see you next week as we continue to talk through H3 TV. How do you bring hope, health, and happiness back to your life, which leads to healing and affects your culture at work? As you take care of yourself, you bring your whole self to work. Take care and have a great week.